Morning, Scott. Good morning. Hey, Scott, just confirming you can hear me. Awesome. Good morning.
I can hear you, sir.
Awesome. Hey, Bez, welcome.
Good morning.
Hey, Muddy. Morning. Marley, welcome. How's it going? I think I saw Zachary on here as well. Morning, Zachary. All right, so just a reminder for everybody to go ahead and post your questions on the dashboard if you have any, although there are just a couple of us and there are no questions queued up in the question system. So why don't we just open it up? Who has a question this morning? What's up, Bez?
An easy one. What's the latest and greatest? Any updates on, Obvio?
Yeah, we have, I think I told you guys, we've been working a lot over the course of the last month or so on infrastructure updates, like back-end changes, things that visibly you guys won't see, but that behind the scenes make a really big difference, especially as it comes to scale and reliability of the platform. So we're continuing to, I guess, kind of plug away at that. The main thing that we started working on was separation of different parts of the app, so that if we get a large influx of attendees, at the same time that we get a huge import of attendee data, like from a service integration or something along those lines, that those two things don't affect each other. So, we're continuing to work on that because there's a couple more things that we still want to do, but that major lift should be done for the most part this week. There'll also be some small performance gains within the application as a result of some of the things that we've done. So you may have even noticed in the last couple weeks, like the organizations page or the events page loading a little bit faster than it used to. That's a result of some of the changes that the team made. In addition to that, we have been doing some other behind the scenes things. So one of the things that we've been working on that you guys also won't actually see is a support application. This is just kind of, inside baseball more than anything, but a lot of the times when you reach out to support, if there's something that's a little bit more data related, oftentimes those fixes or little things have to be looked up by either myself or Grant or one of the developers. So for the last couple months, we've also been quietly working on a support application to allow our support team to better support our users without the need for developer intervention. Again, that's not necessarily something that you guys are going to see firsthand ever, but it is something that you'll see the results of, because what'll wind up happening is support questions will be able to be answered faster. So a few things like that we're doing behind the scenes. Front of house or application changes, we finally allow you guys to delete events and delete organizations. So those two changes were released, I believe, Monday. And essentially, under the organization, there's those little, or the event, there's the little 3 dots that reveal a menu under the organization. And also under the event, you can now delete events and organizations. Something that's really important to know, and there's a confirmation dialog that spells this out. The deletion of an organization or of an event is not reversible. It's not something that we can reverse. Even if you reach out to us and be like, "Oh man, I deleted my event by accident. Can you get it back?" And the answer is no. So when an event is deleted, all attendee data related to that event is cleared. All recordings related to that event are cleared. Everything. So just know that that is a permanent step. Also, when you go to delete an event, you'll not only get a confirmation dialog, but you'll be asked to delete or to enter your password as a confirmation. The deletion of events and organizations should only be accessible at the owner level, the account owner level. So if you are not the account owner, even if you have admin status, then you still, like, even if you're set up as a user within an organization with every check mark available, you won't have the ability to delete organizations or to delete events. That is an account owner only feature. The other thing, as it relates to deleting organizations, organizations can only be deleted if there are no events within that organization. So just a few little minor minor pieces to keep in mind. But especially for some users, I'm thinking about Marley on this call right now, who are at the pro level, but you have, you're using some enterprise style features where you may be supporting a client with an event, and you create an organization for that user or for that client, and then you put that event within the organization. You have a limit of 3 organizations at the pro level. So now after the event, if you want to, you can delete that event and then the organization, allowing you to create more organizations. Now, Marley, just thinking about that particular process, you may not want to delete the event, but you may want to delete the organization. You can still move events within organizations that you are the owner of. So if you have an organization inside your account that is like your organization where all of your stuff is, but when you have a client event, you may not want to give a client access to all of those events. You can create an organization for the event, create the event in there, and then after the event, once your client no longer needs access to it, you can move that event to your holding organization, right, where everything is, and delete the organization. That account deletion, or that delete of organization, does, of course, remove all of those users. Any user that you add to Obvio will no longer have access to that organization. It does not delete their accounts. So if you invited somebody to an organization and then you delete that organization, they can still log into Obvio. They just can't do anything unless they are invited to another organization or unless they sign up for an Obvio account. So a few little things. A couple of other minor bug fixes that were fixed over the course of the last week. I don't know if you guys ever ran into this, but from time to time, the text editor, if the window wasn't big enough that you were working in and you clicked a drop down, like for font name or for color or for some of those formatting attributes that have drop downs, if the drop down wasn't fully visible, sometimes you wouldn't be able to see it all, or sometimes it would be hidden in a weird way. That has been resolved, it was a minor annoyance because there was always a workaround, but a nice usability fix that's been issued. Let's see. There were a couple of other things that were minor that were released as well. Go High Level had some issues. The integration for Go High Level had some issues associated with it. Those issues were resolved yesterday, I believe. So that kind of completes the integration of that particular platform. So we now have ActiveCampaign, High Level, Keep, MailChimp, and HubSpot integration, in addition to Zapier. The next integrations that we're working on, again, just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes, we're working on ConvertKit next. And then after ConvertKit, we'll be working on a platform called Entreport. So we're hoping to have both of those services fully integrated with the platform by the end of this year, which will have us having added, I believe, 5 services over the course of this year. So a pretty big lift on the development team's perspective, because I've said this before, but every time we add a new service that Obvio works natively with, the whole team has to kind of learn how to use that service for a period of time, right? Then we have to learn their API and understand how it works. And there's, it almost takes longer to do that than it does to actually write the service integration. So anyway, those are kind of things that are coming next. Trying to think of, there was another one that was just a small little usability quirk that was a pain in the butt that has been resolved, and I am forgetting what it is in this moment. Yeah, I've got nothing, but those are kind of the latest and greatest. I will say to you that Marketplace is still a top priority for us, but over the course of the last month or so, stability of the platform has been more important than additional features. So the development of Marketplace was put on hold as we worked on our infrastructure, and that now that infrastructure work is almost complete, next week we'll be diving back into Marketplace with the hope of having that done relatively fast. We're actually going to put our probably our entire development team is, with the exception of 1 or 2 people, is going to be working on Marketplace to try and speed up that process, because it was originally supposed to be, the new Marketplace feature was supposed to be released in July. So we're a little behind schedule on that. So that's kind of I guess a state of the union update as it relates to the platform. Yeah, Grant is actually reminding me that I don't believe it's on the platform yet, but we are adding a confirmation dialog when you delete or remove items. So right now, if you hover over a button and you accidentally click delete, it deletes it right away. Same thing with blog posts and almost any other delete section, with the exception of deleting events and deleting organizations. And what we're adding is essentially a confirmation that says, are you sure you want to delete this? It can't be added back in. That particular delete confirmation will not have a password requirement. It's just an extra step to make sure that you don't delete something by accident. So that, I know, is on its way. I believe I know who's working on it, and I don't think it's actually made it into our staging environment yet. Last I saw, it had been sent back for review, meaning there were a couple of changes that our lead developer wanted to made on that feature before it was published. So that's where we are there. All right, so with that, Bez, thank you for that. Why don't we go to Marley, who has her hand raised?
Thank you. Hi, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you.
I am working on this client event October 26th through the 28th, and I am a little bit worried. I had offered her to do the shopping cart page, but I'm a little bit worried if I should have offered that to her since it's still, you know, not like at 100%. What do you think?
I mean, the existing shopping cart page works. It has some bugs, and I would highly recommend that you keep a document, like an external document, with any content changes that you make to that page. So functionally, it works. The biggest problem right now is actually, I'm going to tell you what the biggest bug is, and that is that for some reason, from time to time, the entire marketplace page during an edit will get cleared. And there's no undoing that clear. And it's so clearly that's a bug. But as long as it doesn't, if it doesn't happen while you're editing it, it won't happen, right? It doesn't just happen randomly. It's a result of something that's taking place. So when you walk away from the editor, as long as it's all still there, you won't experience it deleting everything randomly. It's more a bug during usage, which is why I recommend that you have a document where you are copying and pasting all of the content that you put on the page, right? Don't write the content within the editor. That is a recipe for losing that content. So that's, clearly one of the major things that is going to be resolved with the new marketplace release, and then usability. So I mean, the current marketplace system works. You can create a fairly complicated and fairly robust sales page, but it's a little bit cumbersome to work through. So that's, essentially what I would say from a marketplace perspective, but I think generally speaking, you're safe.
That sounds good. Thank you so much. I will do that and move forward as planned. It's going to be pretty simple, so I can keep that as a backup if a bug happens. Today, I sent a message on the help desk because when I was trying to create a ticket and save it, it gives me an error saying that I needed my goodness, I forgot the 3 words, like fold, head, or delete, something to that effect. It just wouldn't let me save a ticket. And this client in particular is going to need like a lot of hidden tickets created for speakers or for sponsors or advisory council members. So I was just a little bit like worried about the creating of the tickets giving me errors this morning. Yeah,
the creating of the tickets shouldn't be a problem. That's not to say that it won't be a problem, but it shouldn't be. And yeah, I mean, beyond that, I don't know what the error was that you were getting. So and I'm trying to log into help desk right now to to find it, but I can't find my password for help desk. So
no worries. I just saw Muddy write in the chat about the Stripe, and that might be it because I haven't been able to meet with the client in person to have her put in her Stripe credentials. So maybe that's why it's giving me an error on the ticket creation. Yeah,
again, that sounds right. It just, I don't know because I'm not looking at what, actually I just found it. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is if your client hasn't connected Stripe, you shouldn't actually be able to see the marketplace menu item. So there's a couple things going on there. And I see the note. I actually don't know what that message means. So I will, that'll probably get fed up to the development team. Yeah, but do try it with the marketplace connected. That should make a difference.
I'll try that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, Marty, also.
Marley had asked another question in the chat here around organizations that I thought was a useful one, asking if you can remove yourself from another organization that you've been added to.
You can't, but they can, but the owner can. So you can't remove yourself from an organization, but the owner has to do it for you. All right, Scott.
Morning.
Morning.
I think I'm the newbie here. Got to say, I'm happy to be here. I love what you're doing. I wish I caught your launch. I didn't do that for some reason. I have no idea why. But I'm kind of glad I missed it because you worked all the bugs out. So it's awesome.
Well, I feel like every day we find a new one, but
yeah, I'm breaking my rule. I always say no new software, but you've done a good job, man. This is cool. I can't wait to jump in completely. Two simple questions. One production, one more design. I was on, I think, video 3 of your onboarding, working on the dashboard. Got it all figured out, with the exception of one little place. These funky little menu items that I can't figure out how to take items off menus.
Sure.
Home, speaker, attendee, things like that.
Yeah. So those menu items are going to be enabled or disabled based on the feature itself being enabled or disabled. So, Scott, do you, can I take a look at the event that you're working within? What's the organization name?
Motivation to Move, and they're both the same. It's just one event, one organization, one event.
Okay, so let's take a peek. So first off, I'm going to take a look at the template. You're using the cards template. So on the dashboard, on the dashboard editor, when you preview, you'll see here, these are the things I think you're talking about.
Yes.
And if not that, you may also be talking about the items right here, which are essentially the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And those are enabled or disabled based on the features themselves. So if we go to features and then speakers and disable speakers, and then you go back to design and preview, you'll notice that speakers is no longer there. And same thing with the sidebar menu, speakers are no longer there. So that text is, or that's where what it's based off of. And then once you enable the feature, it re-enables. Now you can also highlight and change the text, right? So rather than speakers, you can go our speakers once you have it visible. So from a design perspective, it now says our speakers everywhere. And when you preview, if it's enabled, that's what you'll get. The nice thing about that is people sometimes use those speaker and sponsor pages for other things. And, I've seen it used for like a team member listing or something along those lines. So you can still use the page, because those are system pages, and then rename the menu items so that they match what the page actually does. But yeah, hiding and showing, or hiding and unhiding or showing those items is based on the feature.
Well, just thank you for proving the fact there are no stupid questions. It's click the button, right? The one I couldn't find after 3 hours of looking for it. Thank you.
Well, so you know what? I'm going to give you a pass on this, because I know what some people do is, they're on this page and they click speakers. Yeah. Or there's another way to do it, and I'm forgetting what it is, but you get to the speaker page, but it doesn't actually do anything for you. And I'm forgetting where that is in this exact moment.
I've been there. Don't worry about it. I've seen it firsthand. So
Yeah, actually, you know what? It's a different template that does it.
Mhm.
But sometimes when these pages are loaded, they load like this.
Right.
And I don't know exactly what that is. That's a small bug as well that we want to work out. And you have to scroll up to see the enabled, disabled toggle.
Oh.
So there's a pass for you.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, so now I can move forward. That's the only thing that had me, and I just won't typically move forward until I fix that bug, you know.
There you go.
And the other thing is production question. This is just me wanting to do more than I should probably be wanting to do. But watching some of your calls, you're able to get not only you on the screen, but you're bringing up the spotlighted person, the speaker on the screen.
Yeah.
Love that effect. I'm pretty technically savvy. For life of me, I can't figure it out.
So when we do that, we're using a hardware switcher to make that happen. So in our particular case, we will have a computer with Zoom on it where the speaker is. And in our case, generally speaking, given that you said you're a little more technical, I'll give you a little bit more of a technical answer.
You can't scare me, trust me.
So in our case, in our studio, in the Stage Studio, we have our attendees in one Zoom room, which is on a single Zoom computer is what we term it internally. And then we have speaker lines or Zoom rooms that are associated that are meant just for speakers to join. And they're a different meeting entirely in our case. And what we do is we take both display outputs from those two computers and put them both into our switcher.
Oh, okay.
And then once we have all the different video feeds inside of our switcher, it gives us the flexibility of doing some of those side-by-side shots. The switchers that we are using for production tend to all be Blackmagic switchers. And there's a really great switcher that is inexpensive called the ATEM Mini Extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And the ATEM Mini Extreme has a feature built into it called Super Source.
Mm-hmm.
And that Super Source makes it easy to create these multi-windowed layouts, assuming you have the video source that you want in that layout in the switcher. So that's what we're using. The switcher that we're using is I'll just say it's like the big brother to the ATEM Mini Extreme, but it has the same functionality, that same super source functionality in it, and it's what we use.
Okay, well, thanks for costing me more money today. That's cool.
Yeah, I will tell you that ATEM Mini Extreme is a really fantastic little switcher. You can see Muddy's screen right now. He's doing something. He's essentially using Super Source right now. So in each Super Source, when you create one, there's 3 elements that you can mod. Well, actually, I guess technically there's 5 elements that you can modify. There's the background layer. So in Muddy's case, he has set the background just to be black. But you can set it to be anything you want, right? You can have a background graphic. You can even have a background that has like a graphic that has an outline for where you're going to place your videos.
Mm-hmm.
And then the super source can enable up to 4 independent boxes. Wow. And each box can be a different video source. So camera 1 through 8, or a media player or a color can go into those sources. And then you can organize them on that page. So Muddy just changed his background from black to that looks like it's either a media player source that's moving, or it may be another video source that he has plugged into it. So lots of flexibility to create really cool things. But it, yes, it requires a piece of hardware. I believe the ATEM Mini Extreme is $1,000.
Yeah, it is. I was researching. I didn't know if I'm on Ecamm right now. I can do a lot of it.
Yep.
But I kind of felt I needed some external hardware to get this done.
Yeah, Ecamm is a really fantastic tool. And the thing, I think Grant and I talk about this a lot. the nice thing about using, I mean, the thing about Ecamm is it's software. So, the more you rely on a single computer to do additional tools,
Yeah.
generally speaking, those computers aren't really designed as switchers, right? They can do it, but they're designed to do computing functions, right? And run an operating system and run a whole bunch of stuff in the background simultaneously.
Mhm.
And what normally happens, or what invariably happens, is the software fails at the point where I least want it to fail.
Always, yeah.
So we usually rely on hardware instead of software in production. But I use Ecamm personally from time to time. I also use Wirecast from time to time, and we also use OBS from time to time.
Okay.
And I also have a computer that has vMix on it that we use from time to time. It's not anything that we use every single day, but there are certain times, if I'm on the road or something along those lines, where we will use it.
So the extra room. So you talked about speakers coming in on another. And this is again my being a novice here. I mean, how are they connected into what's happening in the main room where they can hear what's happening? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that presents you with your next problem.
Thank you. I'm ready. Credit card's good. Let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like you probably have an audio mixer.
Yeah.
And the reality is, once you have more than one Zoom computer, you now need to be feeding audio and video to both computers, not just one. The nice thing about the ATEM Extreme is it has two USB-C outputs, both of which can be used simultaneously to hook up to two different computers. So you can feed a video source. You can actually feed video and audio really easily that way, but we usually will use our mixer to feed audio rather than the ATEM, because we're almost always feeding a mix minus to the Zoom computers. So every audio source that's plugged into our mixer minus itself goes back into it. And by doing that, we have, I mean, I don't just have one, but in our case, each studio has, I believe, 13 computers that can be used as Zoom computers. And they're all pre-set up using, to receive a separate video source, an audio source, and also to give back that audio source and video source back into the switcher. So, it's just a thing that in our case continues to grow, but you can do that really easily. What audio mixer do you have?
I currently don't have one. I'm on the Universal Audio System. I have an Apollo Twin going in, but I do need to. So I've got their console system I can route pretty well.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I've done that. I've owned production companies in the past and I've been down this road a bunch. So I just have not been down this road. So
yeah. The other thing that you can do, and this is how you would kind of do it a little bit more, a little more software based without actually doing very much. Is that. So I don't know if you can see the video right now, but what's spotlit for in Zoom is you and me side by side.
Yeah.
Right. And it's clearly not the same.
Right.
But, without having to go through the complexity of what we're talking about, you can have two speakers up at the same time in Spotlight, which is.
Yeah, I've been doing that, gotten pretty good at that. But anybody can do that, right? So
anybody can do that. Not everybody knows they can do that, but
yeah.
yes.
Well, I found out about a month ago, so but yeah, it's a I don't think we're going to do huge things. I mean, I could easily draw 500 with no problem, and so I just want to be a little notch above.
Yeah.
And I've got the hardware expertise, and I've got a couple computers sitting around that aren't doing anything right now. I'm running Mac Studios, and they're fantastic.
They really are.
I just can't push them over the edge. It's just amazing what they can do.
Yeah, I only have one Mac Studio in our lineup, but it does quite a lot, and it never breaks a sweat. It's pretty amazing.
It is amazing.
Yep.
All right, man. I appreciate it. I can't wait to dig in and show off some stuff.
Cool.
So,
well, as you get through, if you have any other questions, don't hesitate. We're here and happy to support.
I appreciate it very much. I do have to take off for a call to make some money to pay for that thing I'm going to buy today.
Go
But
for it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so Muddy had asked a question about whether or not an event can be copied from one user to another, and or if there's a way to export an event out of the platform and then re-import it back into another user. And we've had conversations about that, Muddy. It's not something that is high on the priority list, but it is something that we've discussed. As it stands right now, in our backend systems, we are able to move an event from one organization to another fairly easily. What needs to happen in order for that to take place is both the owner of the old organization as well as the owner of the new organization need to make the request. And once we get the request from both organization owners, we then move it over. It's actually pretty simple. But it is something that we don't just take the request from one person, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's interesting. The update dashboard I actually think is very similar to the classic template. Actually, I think it is using the classic template. And I'm also pretty sure it's the demo sample data for the most part that we used to build it. So that's already there, really. All right. Well, there's no other questions inside of, at least I don't see any incoming questions.
There was one question in the chat about integration with ClickFunnels, and I think Zapier is just the best way to do that. I just want to verify that.
Yeah, it is for now. ClickFunnels is definitely a service that we would like to integrate with, but it's interesting. Their current API is fairly limited, or public API is fairly limited. And if we were to integrate, we would be integrating with ClickFunnels 2, not ClickFunnels 1. And most people are still using ClickFunnels 1. So you're right. The way to integrate ClickFunnels with Obvio is to use Zapier, right? And trigger a Zap based on, if you're using ClickFunnels 1.0, using their native Zapier integration. If you're using ClickFunnels 2.0, last I checked, they do not have a native integration with Zapier, but that platform is changing almost daily. They do have, ClickFunnels 2.0 has a webhook system that allows you to send a webhook on purchase or on opt-in, and you can pair that webhook system with Zapier and Obvio. So we have, in kind of proof of concept, set up both ClickFunnels 1.0 and 2.0 to work with Obvio. And the other thing that I'll say, what becomes really handy, especially if you're using ClickFunnels 1.0, because the email system inside of 1.0 it could be better. Then what may be interesting for you is using the broadcast system, which allows you to do things like send a confirmation email on welcome, right? So when somebody signs up using ClickFunnels and then they are zapped into your Obvio event, you can have a welcome email set up that automatically is sent out. And then you can, on top of that, you can work with the broadcaster to send out emails welcoming them to the event. So that's probably something that I would consider if I was you.
Thank you. There's a question in the chat about using a form on the waiver step. The question is asked, can you go over how to use a form as a questionnaire during the sign-in phase? And they were thinking it would replace the waiver, but I know, of course, it supplements the waiver step. So didn't know if you wanted to demo that or talk about that.
Sure. So see if I can. What am I plugged into? Whose event is this? Oh, this is Scott's. Let's not do it here. Okay, so let's just go into an Obvio event. All right, so go back to our handy April 12th. So how you have an intake question is going to be based on the waiver step. So the waiver step is something where, wow, it's some really ugliness. Hold on one second. Let's make this so that we can see it. That would probably do it.
Looks like there was some questions around forms as well, too. You may want to back up one step, too.
Yeah. So this is where you're going to want to actually use, where you're going to put the form. That is your intake questionnaire. And by default, the forms toggle is disabled and signature required is enabled. What you are probably going to do is either leave a waiver in place, or you can actually turn off the waiver requirement and just turn on the form requirement, and then select a form that is, something that you've set up previously. Now, I'm going to, once you've done that, now when somebody goes into the dashboard for the first time and you have the waiver step enabled, they'll see the form and they'll be required to fill out that form before they can actually check in or land on the dashboard. In order to create a form, you go into Features and Forms, you create New Form, and call it whatever you want. So intake questionnaire, that, or maybe like that, and click Create. Once you do that, you click on the question and you're going to have some things that you have to fill out. So number one, these top two, just leave them as is if it's going to be a waiver form, because they're not going to be able to technically edit the answer or submit multiple times, because once they submit the waiver form, they go to the dashboard and they'll never see it again. So submit label, you do have to put something like this here. So thanks for submitting. Oh, wait, no, this is the actual text. Submit my form, submit message, thanks for submitting. Again, in the waiver step, both of these are not going to be visible. You're actually going to edit those on the waiver itself, but we'll show you what that looks like. Next up, leave redirect and submission blank for now. And if you want to pick an action for points, but I'm going to leave that blank as well and start adding questions. So let's say you're asking a revenue-based question, like you have a business event and you'd like to know how much money your attendees are making in their business. So how much did your company gross last in fiscal year 2022 ? And then you can, what I would do for these intake questions is always make them multiple choice or radio buttons. So I'm going to say like under 100K, add another option, 100K to 500K, add another option, 500K to 1 million. Add another option over 1 million. And of course, you can spell all those out. I'm just doing this fairly quick. Now I'm going to go ahead and click that the question is required. No, just like that. Right. Click save. That's kind of backwards, but whatever. And now I'm going to go up to the top and click save for the form itself. Go back to check-in and change my question to the intake questionnaire. And now when I preview this page, what you'll see is how much money did your company gross? And then you see, well, you don't because the design on this is horrible, but you see the actual questions and you can select which one you want and then click submit. Now I told you that you'd be able to modify the button on the actual waiver step. So you hover over the submit button and you can change the text as well as add an icon and then go to styling and style the button as desired. So that's how you add an intake questionnaire to your Obvio dashboard.
Awesome, thank you. And something I've heard you talk about is that when you add a questionnaire to the waiver step, it essentially becomes a required step as they're going through the onboarding process. And I guess as long as the questions themselves are required, right? Because you could have a form where questions are not required, but any required questions they'd have to answer before they get into the event, right?
Exactly. So the form is required to be submitted before the user can access the dashboard. But if and questions all by default are all required. However, as Muddy said, you can go into a form, make a question not required, and then they could then submit the form with the question unanswered, which would allow them to get past it. But generally speaking, I mean, unless you're asking something really personal, we never make intake questionnaires optional. The reason we have them as an intake questionnaire is because we want to know the information about the attendee. And it's all very innocuous, right? It's very general. We're not asking them to put a specific number, right? So as an example, with that revenue question, we never put a text box where we ask them to actually type the number in, because that's not something that we want. When we're looking at an intake survey, we're looking at the data in aggregate, right? So knowing just if they fit into one of those categories is enough for that information to be useful for us. And it's not so much that the user feels awkward, right? Like, I'm not sure I want to answer this question. Like we're not putting, what was your income claimed with the IRS on your 2022 W-2, right? Like that's not the question that we're asking. So hopefully that helps. And guys, if you give me 1 second, I'm just realizing that I'm at 5% battery and I don't have a charger around me. So I'm going to change where I'm doing this call from. It'll take me about 60 seconds or so. Be right back.
Christine, I saw you had a question in the chat about changing the dates each week when you have a recurring event. And now that Obvio no longer uses a credit system, you can have a date range for an event run all year long, right? So even if your event is a weekly recurring event, you can have the dates of the event, the start date and the end date of the Obvio event span the whole year. And then essentially that just means that that dashboard is live and that Zoom is available during that whole time period. So hopefully that is helpful. I was just starting to type it out, but I thought I might just jump in and answer it while Blue's getting the power cord.
Anybody pick up any cool hardware over the Labor Day holidays? There was some sales out there.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Rode Streamer X, cool. I also, did I see that Rode released a new microphone, a new wireless Go?
They did. It's called the Wireless Pro, and it adds a couple of key features: 32-bit float recording in each of the transmitters. Notably, it has time code, has a time code generator in the receiver, so it makes it easier to sync audio in post. And the receiver also has both a headphone jack and a microphone input. So you could have a third mic. I'm not really sure about the use case for that one, but yeah, some cool new features. And I think it comes in at $500, and it includes a charging case too now.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't understand the use case for that headphone jack either. Or well, do they have a headphone jack, a mic jack, and an output jack? Is there 3 of them?
Yeah, exactly. I think so. The headphone jack is good because you can monitor the mics, you can monitor the audio even when the audio is going into your system. I think the mic is for TalkBack actually, but I'm not exactly sure how that works. Anyway.
Well, I mean, honestly, even if it's just like a third mic input at the camera source, right? So, you know, have a shotgun mic on top of everything else. That'd be interesting. Or, you know, how sometimes you do interviews and the person asking the question is behind the camera. So you have 2 people in front of camera that are wireless, and then the person who's at the camera asking the questions can be wired. That's interesting use case, assuming that's
Nice.
that's the case. All right. Any other questions this morning? You guys are quiet.
I submitted one question in the Q&A, but it has to do with the communication. So the communication system in Obvio is awesome. One of the things that I've noticed can be a little less clear for new users is the difference between purchase confirmation emails and welcome emails, since they're both automated emails for people that come in different paths, essentially. But I wondered if you might talk a minute about that.
Yeah, sure. So what Muddy's referring to is within Obvio, if you go into communication, you see an option for welcome email and you see an option for purchase confirmations. And if you click on them, you'll notice that they look very much the same. So welcome email can be enabled or disabled. You have a from, a subject, and a body. And then purchase confirmation, when you go to that, can be enabled, disabled, and you have a from email, a subject, and a body. And as a result, sometimes they're confused in terms of what exactly they both do, because they look virtually identical. Also, purchase confirmation and welcome email can be, thought of as very similar as well. So they do the exact same function, but for 2 different types of attendees, because there's really 2 different ways that you can bring attendees into Obvio. Way number 1 is through the marketplace. And way number 2 is by either a service integration, a manual import, or a manual addition to the platform. And I know I said 3 things there, but those all qualify as essentially the same type of attendee addition within our platform. So if an attendee purchases or registers through a marketplace page, they will get the purchase confirmation email, but not the welcome email, right? So the welcome email for somebody who purchases through marketplace is purchase confirmations. If you want to send an email to people that you import manually or that you bring in through a service integration or something along those lines, you can turn on the welcome email. Those attendees, when they are first created, will get that email. They will not get purchase confirmations. So it's essentially the same function for the two different ways that attendees can come in, and you can have one or both enabled or disabled. So that's essentially the difference. And it's nice because there's some automation there, right? Because you can write your email, you can give people access to the dashboard in that email, and that purchase confirmation email essentially goes out pretty instantly, which is nice.
And it's one of the things I also thought was maybe worth mentioning in the same discussion is that when someone purchases a ticket through Marketplace, they get that confirmation email, but they don't necessarily get access to the dashboard yet, right? I mean, they could be buying a ticket a few weeks before the event or a week before the event, and the dashboard isn't really open yet.
That comes down to a strategy question and whether or not the user wants to give people access to the dashboard at the time of purchase or not, right? So if you want to give people access to a dashboard in advance of the event at the time of purchase, then you can write your purchase confirmation or your welcome email and include the login URL or magic link that goes back to your dashboard and give people access. But at the same time, if you don't want to give them access to the dashboard until you're actually going to be checking people in or the day of or the day before the event, then you can write that purchase confirmation email or welcome email in such a way where it doesn't include the login URL. So it's really flexible. You can write the email either way. The login URL is not included by default. It's something that you have to add to the emails. All right. Yeah, thank you, Muddy. All right. I don't see any other questions. Let me take a peek in the chat. All right. Well, I don't see anything else. Yeah, Amy, all of those questions would be questions that you don't want to ask, right? They sound awfully like the same questions your bank asks you for multi-factor authentication.
No, I do have a question. So this week, and first of all, thanks to the development team, love that Obvio just keeps getting better and better, and the Go high level integration is working well. I tested it. As I mentioned, and you helped me understand why, the first name and last name sometimes are coming in lowercase. And so it's easy enough to export the list, run it through a couple of equations and get it back into the sentence case I want and import it again. But can you talk about, I know when you export attendees and import them back in, there's two things that occur to me. One is that email is the key to make sure that's what's going to match things up. So to make sure that email's in there. But the format of the export includes some fields that you may or may not want when you import it back in. I remember a long time ago getting a bunch of crazy stuff happening.
Yeah, that can be interesting. So what Muddy's referring to is if you're using Go High Level, they're in the process of making changes to how their data is stored. But essentially inside of their platform, it looks as though all of their data is stored lowercase, so case insensitive. It doesn't matter if you put cases in it or not, how the data is stored within their platform is without case. What that translates to, because Obvio is just receiving information from our service integration partners, we're not processing that information. What winds up happening then is all of your attendees wind up in Obvio with like Blue Melnick, all lowercase as a name, as an example. So, the good news is that that's not the end of the world. Where it can be a concern or a problem is if you are sending out an email and you are embedding that name into the email, right? So generally speaking, we, in North America anyway, we capitalize surnames as well as first names. For Go High Level integration or for Go High Level imported attendees, they will appear not capitalized. So I do know the developer who on our team who created the service integration with High Level has been going back and forth with the High Level development team, and they're aware of it and are working to resolve it. So that's part number one. Part number two, Muddy, as Muddy said, you can make changes yourself. The thing about that, though, Muddy, I don't know that the changes would stick with Go High Level, because Go High Level, so before you run through all those machinations,
because it syncs.
Yes, exactly. I would update a couple of those attendees manually to change their first name and last name to be capitalized and see what happens. And you have to, so what you're going to want to do is wait a minimum of 5 minutes, because the way the Go High Level integration works, and this is the same as the HubSpot integration, is every 5 minutes, Obvio says to Go High Level, Obvio says to HubSpot, hey, any new attendees in this list, in the case of HubSpot, or any new attendees with this tag in the case of Go High Level or High Level. And then when we receive that list of attendees, we are comparing it against the same attendees or the same list of attendees for that event inside of Obvio. Any changes that we receive from High Level then get updated inside of our database. And I'm not sure if that capitalization inside the Obvio data will be seen as a difference when the sync happens. So double check that just to be sure before you do the next step. But assuming for the moment that Obvio doesn't see it as a change and just recognizes that it's just a case sensitivity issue and ignores it, I don't think is how it's going to wind up playing out. But if it does, then what you can do is, as Muddy said, go to the attendees page, export your attendees, make all the changes that you want to make to your attendee list, and then re-import that file. Before you do, though, you're going to want to delete all of the columns that appear to be Obvio specific. The columns that I'm talking about are going to be like your login URL. You do not want to re-import that into Obvio. That'll cause mass confusion for you, most likely. You also don't want to, you also don't want to import the checked in data, the waiver column, the password created column, all of those additional columns that you see when you export attendees that you didn't create, that Obvio created. You want to delete all of those from your CSV file. And then once you do, you make those changes and then re-import that same file. And Obvio is smart enough to not create multiple attendees who have the same email address. What Obvio will do is it'll simply say, oh, Blue@BlueMelnick is already an attendee. Let's update blue@bluemelnick.com to match what I have in this CSV file. So there you go. But yeah, so the correct order: first name, last name, email. Phone number is optionally phone number. I believe it's phone_number. I gotta double check that. But it doesn't have to be in a specific order. There is, that particular field can be anywhere as long as it has the right header, which I believe is phone_number. And then you're correct, groups and tags, or sorry, tags then groups. Cool. What's up, Nathan? Good to see you. Having a good afternoon, I hope.
Yeah, beautiful little heat wave going off in the UK at the moment. We had a dreadful summer. And now the kids went back to school today and the sun's come out and it's a heat wave. So that's good. That way it goes.
That's
All good, yeah. It's coming to a close of a busy event season. And I'm exhausted.
it's good to hear. Sometimes tired after a good event season is a good kind of tired, right?
It is a good kind of tired. It is a good kind of tired, but I'm raring to get this old barn turned around into the studio so I can move on with the new plans, as it were. But at the moment, it's the old plans pay the bills, as you know. So
Totally. Hey Heather, I just saw you pop on. I also just saw that question that you asked. So yes, Go High Level integration is set up and working. So you're good to go. I know Muddy has tested it with a client event. We've also tested it internally with a fairly large sample data. We've tested it with, I think my sample data that I used was 12,000 attendees. So it's working really well.
Yeah. I have a quick question on that.
Yeah.
So when we were going inside the integration yesterday, we haven't gotten it today. I was looking for what I'm looking for is when someone actually goes into the dashboard and clicks the main stage, I want to have a tag. Is that going to still be through Zapier, or can we go through the direct to Go High Level?
That's direct through Go High Level.
Okay, got it. Because we saw the first 3 tags that we were allowed to create, and they didn't have one of those, but I'm assuming when we go into the settings on the main stage with the button, we can do that. I'm assuming we haven't checked it yet.
That is correct.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So what'll wind up happening once you connect Go High Level to the application and you set up your sync. So there's a couple things that are really, really important with Go High Level. The Go High Level integration is a little bit unique, but in the end functions the exact same way as the HubSpot integration. So the thing that's unique about Go High Level is when you create the integration, Obvio will give you the tag that you need to apply to all your attendees. And there's a very specific reason for that. And that's that inside of Go High Level, in their API, when you do a search for tags, it doesn't only, if I do a search for a specific tag name, it searches not only the tags, but it also searches the contact's first name, last name, and email address. So as a result, we wanted to make sure that there was not a chance of somebody accidentally creating a tag name that was included in somebody's name, because if that happened, it would create problems. So that's why we specify for Go High Level, we specify the tag name. And yeah, and it's a little bit longer, right? It includes your event slug. It includes a date, like a little numeric code at the end, which if you pay attention is just the date.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit longer, but once you apply that tag to contacts in Go High Level, Obvio will import anybody who has that tag or it'll sync up those attendees every 5 minutes. Something that's really, really important, once you click save down at the bottom of your integration page, you have to go to the top and toggle the sync on. There's a toggle at the top of the Go High Level page that can turn the sync on or off. You're going to want to turn it on.
Is that inside of Obvio on the integration side? I'm staring at Obvio page. Okay. All right.
Yep.
And so what I'm hearing you say on the workflow, then do we need to add that tag inside of Go High Level? That long? I know what you're talking about. I saw it yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. So from a workflow perspective, when somebody signs up for the event, they need to be given that specific tag. They can be given any other tags you want, but that tag needs to be included in the workflow. Otherwise, they won't get imported into Obvio.
Okay, got it. So adds a tag, and then the Obvio unique link is created on top of that, correct?
Yeah, correct. And that works the same way, right? You create a custom field inside of Go High Level. And the moment it's not the moment, right? Because it takes 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, because we sync every 5 minutes. Then at the time of import, we will also write the login URL back to High Level, the same way the Zapier integration will work for you.
Okay, great. And if you could repeat yourself one more time, the toggle you're talking about, that's inside of High Level under the services integration. And what does the toggle say? Do you know?
It just says
great.
sync. Yeah, it says sync. So let's see. I think I was testing here. So if we go to attendees and services and go to High Level, it's right here at the top. You see it says sync attendees. By default, that's going to be off. So you're going to enter in your name, right? So how this works is we add the name Obvio, we put a dash, then we put your event name, right? So in this case, this event was called Chris Test. So Chris -test and then 09/04/23, and that's just September 24th, 2023. So that's the tag that you want to copy and paste. Within the next 48 hours, you're going to see a little button appear here, which is a copy button to make it a little easier to just copy that. But in the meantime, you just need to highlight the entire text and Command-C or Control-C, depending on whether or not you're Windows or PC. And then go down, click Save. Once you click Save, you then toggle sync to on. And then every 5 minutes, the system will import those attendees. And much like other, other systems, or all of your tags will get imported automatically. Their name will get, or their login URL will get written back to Go High Level. And then once your sync is created, when you create a button down at the bottom, the same place you had Zapier tags, you have a High Level tag, right? And you can just type in what you want that tag to be, and it will be added to the contact record inside of High Level on click.
If you could go back to the section right underneath it when you were talking about the tags, I noticed that you changed the names of the tags, but I thought you said they were like templatized because of
the only you can apply any tag you want. The only tag that is templatized is the Obvio import /delete tag. That's the that's the only one. The rest of them you can make whatever you want. But the Obvio import /delete tag has to be the one that we create. Outside of that, anything you want is fair game.
Okay, great. Also, I appreciate this. I'm meeting with my tech guy in 45 minutes. So thank you. Great.
Cool.
And Blue, I mentioned in the chat, but the neat thing about that tag in the integration system in Go High Level is if you remove that tag from somebody, am I right? It removes them as an attendee from the Obvio event as well.
Yep. Yeah, that functionality works the same across all 5 integrations. So, for High Level, the attendee tag, once it's removed, that attendee is removed from Obvio. For Keep, it's the same process. For MailChimp, it's the same process. For ActiveCampaign, it's the same process. For HubSpot, it's a little bit different. In HubSpot, it's a list membership that is essentially the tag. But for HubSpot, when you remove an attendee from the list, they will then get removed from Obvio. So the same functionality really across the board, even though they all work a little bit different. That's, of course, a result of how those different services work. And we are trying to keep the functionality the same for all.
Quick question, Blue, on that. On the 2 events under Love America Homes, we cleared the attendees. We just cleared. And then we're making the new integration. I don't know if that was right or wrong, but that's what we did. So with the assumption that, one, we didn't want everyone to be and also clear the credits. But now everything's cleared. We're going to basically add people back into the workflow, and then the tag will be created. And then I don't know if a new Obvio link is going to be created, but in the custom
It is a
field.
new, yeah, it will be anybody who was previously in Obvio who gets re-imported. Like if they were deleted and then they get re-imported,
Yeah.
they will get a new login URL. It's not the same login URL. It is new. It's changed. It will change.
Is that because of the Go High Level integration? Is that why?
No, it's because once an attendee is deleted and then re-added, the new attendee is given a new login URL, right? It's not given the old login URL because we don't know what the old login URL was because it's been deleted.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, we cleared them out, so we'll just kind of move them as fresh. Okay, that's good to know, though, for any issues. Thank you.
Yeah, and you may just want to, like, to clear up confusion, you may want to just delete the old login URL field and create a new one. And then that way, all of that data will disappear from high level as well, because all of those old login URLs are no longer valid.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'll tell him. That's really good. I don't think we knew that. I don't think he knew that, so that's really good. Thank you. I'll tell him today.
And again, I don't know that it really matters, because when even if an attendee was in there previously, when we create the new attendee, we will overwrite the data in the login field. So it's not the end of the world if you don't, but it does eliminate the possibility of confusion down the road. That's all.
Yeah, it's a custom field. So let me ask him how he wants to play that. But that's a good point. I appreciate that. I'll let you know in Facebook if there's issues.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, if there's any issues, let us know. But like I said, between myself, one of our developers tested it pretty extensively on production yesterday. And then I know Muddy's also been playing with it. The integration seems solid.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, guys.
And Muddy just asked a great question. If they have a magic link, let's say in high level, but they've been deleted from Obvio, will the magic link still work? And it doesn't. What winds up happening is they land on the dashboard, or they land on the login page, and they get essentially the same message that they would get if they tried to log into your event with the wrong username and password. And I think it's something along the lines of username doesn't exist, or user with that password and email doesn't exist, something along those lines.
That explains the experience I had when I tried to go back to TVE 6 dashboard, because I was looking for something. And since then, the attendees had been cleared, or the dashboard was turned off. And so even when I went back and used an old magic link, I was no longer an attendee. So I got that user does not exist or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think we cleared that event for some reason. And I think it related to the Encore experience that we did. And for some reason, I don't know what we were thinking in the moment, but I think we probably should have duplicated the dashboard and created a new dashboard for the TVE 6 Encore, but instead we cleared the attendees, which then of course everybody lost access to that dashboard. So
either that, or somebody asked in this update call, how do you delete attendees? And they're like, here, let me show you. Let me pull up the TVE 6 dashboard. There we go.
Yeah, because I do have a tendency to use our old events just to play with. No, but I think in this particular case, because there's still like 360, 370, something like that attendees in there, I'm pretty sure it had to do with the Encore experience.
I have a final little question that's unusual, but so the live chat, the live support chat from the Obvio backend, which is awesome, and James and Heather, who always help me in there, are awesome as well. Sometimes I notice that little blue icon has like a red dot on it, and sometimes it doesn't. And I wasn't sure if that meant that the team was offline, but it doesn't seem to correlate with that when I test. I just thought I would ask.
So this is a great question. And probably a great question for live chat support. But I think what it indicates is that a text message or a message has been sent to you. So I think it's like a notification. So Muddy, I'm kind of waiting for, there we go. Does it have a number in that red dot, or is it just a red? So click on it.
No, it looks like a target bullseye. It's just a white dot in the middle.
Yeah. So what happens when you click on it?
I mean, right now it says the Obvio team is not available, but it's just the same interface where I can type in my question. And sometimes I click it, or sometimes there's not, like right now, there's no red dot once I clicked it. And it's the same interface. So I wasn't sure. Maybe just an anomaly.
No, yeah, that is weird. Now minimize it. Huh. Here, let me try something, because I'm in.
When I refresh the page, it comes back.
Yeah. Okay, let me refresh the page one more time. It was still there. So it's not a. Oh wait, hold on a second. Obvio has not recognized that I'm accepting chats yet. Traffic.
Yeah, maybe.
Go ahead and click on it one more time.
So the only pattern I've noticed so far is that when the red dot shows up and I click on it and then minimize it, the red dot is gone. But if I refresh, the red dot comes back. Let's see now.
All right, now go ahead and try and click on that and just type in a question and click start the chat.
Incoming chat.
Incoming chat. So
Oh
scroll
Lord,
up.
now I know every time I send that, somebody gets that alert somewhere.
Yeah, somebody does. So minimize that now. And refresh the page.
No dot.
Yeah, so I think it has to do with unread incoming messages to you.
Ah, okay, interesting. So if I've submitted a message,
Yeah,
it hasn't been marked as read yet on your side, it shows as a red dot.
or if we sent you a message and you haven't seen it yet, either way. So here, let me try.
Yeah.
Everybody, this is riveting stuff, folks. But this is what happens. All right, so let me try something.
Well, it
Now
popped right up,
yeah,
even
so
though I had it closed.
Yeah, that's me starting a chat. So I can start a chat with somebody, right? Even though you're not there. So don't close it. Just refresh the page or minimize the chat.
Here is the minimize button. Okay. Refresh.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
So you see how it now turned red. I have a note inside of our chat that it's been delivered, but you haven't actually read it yet. So now if you click on it, you'll see the chat. And now when you minimize it and refresh, it'll go away. So it has to do with, it's an unread chat notification.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, now let me make sure that I turn off my chat because I don't want to accept chats right now. We're talking. All right, there we go. And Heather, yes, it is. It is online. All right, Nathan, do you have a go-to Thunderbolt to HDMI adapter? So Nathan, my question for you is, are you really talking about Thunderbolt, like Thunderbolt 2? Or are you talking about USB-C, which looks the same as Thunderbolt 3 or 4? Because my answer is going to be different depending on which.
Coming off a M2 Mac Studio.
All right, so an M2 Mac Studio, you're talking about the USB-C style connector, so the slightly thin, rounded ones. My go-to, I mean, listen, it's more expensive than all the rest, but especially for what it does. But generally speaking, my go-to adapters are always the Apple branded adapters, because I find that I have less problems with the Apple branded adapters over time than I do anything else. Now, with that being said, I do have a non-Apple branded adapter. That is my go-to. It's made by Anker. And the one that I really like is this one. So the reason I happen to like this one is it gives me an HDMI port. It gives me an HDMI port. It gives me Ethernet, which sometimes is valuable. It gives me a USB-C data port, two older styled like USB-A, USB 3.0 connectors. And then it also gives me a power adapter or a power plug. Now, for the Mac Studio, that power plug is going to be, not relevant. But for notebooks, it's really nice because it means I can plug this particular adapter in, have all these things connected to it, and have my power connected to it as well. And I don't lose a port for power if for some reason I don't have my MagSafe connector with me. So I happen to really like those. And I mean, I feel like I probably have 40 or 50 of them hanging around the office. Most of them hanging off of computers, but I know I have a stack of 10 of them sitting on my desk because it's one of those things that is just really, really useful. And I personally really like that when I'm using a Mac, one of the MacBook Pros, one of the new ones that has an HDMI out port on it, because it allows me to, basically I now have two HDMI out ports. And same thing for the Mac Studio, because I'm pretty sure the Mac Studio has one, possibly two HDMI ports on the back of it, now that I'm thinking about it. But you can connect, I think, up to 4 or 5 4K monitors to that same computer. So there you go.
One HDMI on there, but 4 other monitors out from that.
Yeah. So that's my go-to. I found that I really, really like the Thunderbolt 3 Belkin adapters that have 2 HDMI outs on them, but they're expensive. They're like $170 a piece. And I have found, just generally speaking, that they don't work very well, for me anyway, with the Apple M1 or M2 chipped computers. So that's why I've moved to the Anker brand, or to those Anker branded adapters when I'm not using one of the Apple ones. And cost wise, it's $31 or $32. I believe the Apple HDMI adapter is like $60 or $65. So yeah, that's the one that we have a lot of those, but I'm slowly phasing them out because they seem to have issues every once in a while. But they definitely don't work very well with the M2 branded computer, or M1 or M2 computers. First off, depending on which computer you have, the second HDMI port won't work. unless you have, I think it'll work with like the 14 or the 16-inch MacBook Pros, and it'll work with the Mac Studio. So I think it's chip related. So I think you need the Max, the Ultra, or the Pro chipset in order for that second HDMI port to work. And even if, so it has to have, so it's not necessarily a Mac 2 Pro, or sorry, a MacBook Pro. It has to have the actual Pro. Is so confusing. It's like ridiculous on Apple's part. It's one of those moments where
Steve Jobs is turning in his grave, isn't he?
Right? Like he's just like, what is wrong with you people? Like how are you naming everything Pro, but nobody knows which version of Pro is it? But anyway,
like the same amount of like engines in the upgraded Pro version, which then makes it nearly the same as the Max. It's just blurred, and it's just. I remember I'm trying to buy a studio at the moment. I'm umming and ahhing, and it's just like, no. Used to be so clear.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We bought an M1 Studio, and I think the options were the Max or the Ultra, right? Those are the two chips you can get in that. And I'm pretty sure we wound up getting a Max. I don't think we decided we didn't need the Ultra capabilities, and the expense of it was a little bit on the higher side.
When you spec up a Mac Mini, then you just go, it was a no-brainer to get a studio, because it ends up, it's actually more expensive by £400 to get a Pro Mac Mini. So I might as well just get a Max, base level Mac Studio. So,
yeah,
I think I've made it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Some of those things don't make sense. I've got an M2, I have an M2 Pro Mac Mini under my desk. That's my daily computer when I'm at the office. It's awesome. But yeah, anyway, there you go. It also makes you wonder when you look at the specs of that M2 of the Studio, why does the Pro, why does the Mac Pro, speaking of more things that are called Pro, why does the Mac Pro even exist? Especially given the fact that so many of the cards, right? Because everybody's going to say, well, it's because of the external card support that you have. Because there's a chassis that you can open up and add cards into it. But the cards that most people were adding to pre M2 or pre M based computers were video cards. So you can't use, but none of those cards will actually work with the Mac Pro based on Apple's M chip. Yeah, exactly. So, and then not only that, the other thing that they were doing is they had that Afterburner card that was a big addition for the Intel-based Mac Pros, but the Afterburner is built into the chip that comes with the Mac Studio, right? The ProRes encoder on the chip that so many of us actually have just in our normal computers is the same thing as that like $3,000 card that was called an Afterburner that you could add to the Mac Pro. Anyway, it's interesting. So yeah, the Mac Studio is, but I say all of that, and I have a PCIe, like an external PCIe chassis from Sonnet, I think, that we have 2 Blackmagic cards inside of connected to my Mac Studio. So I guess that would be a use case for the Mac Pro. But anyway, it is what it is. All right, guys, I know we've spent like the last 30 minutes basically just geeking out on tech, which is totally cool. I'm fine with that. But does anybody have any more Obvio-based questions? Let me double check to see if any have been submitted. It looks like no. So I'll just give you guys a couple seconds to think of any questions that you have. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and call it. Geek out, exactly, right? Just go for it. Muddy, speaking of geeking out, I have something that's on my current wish list that I'll share with you. so Yamaha in March or April or May announced a new mixer, a new digital mixer called the DM3. So it's a pretty small form factor. It's bigger than like the Rodecaster Pro. It's bigger than the Mackie. What's that called? Like a DM7 or DMZ or something like that. I don't remember but Mackie has a comparable audio mixer to the Rodecaster. Yeah, exactly. So the cool thing about the DM3 is it's relatively small. So we have a QU16 that we use from time to time in studio, Alan and Heath, and I love that board. I actually that's where I grew up from an audio perspective on. Yeah, so this that is the board I have that on my wish list for our podcast studio, because first off, our two main studios run off of similar boards, right? So we have a QL1 in the smaller of the two studios, and then we have a CL3 or CL1 in the larger of the two studios, and they all have Dante integrated, which is great because we use Dante we run very, very little XLR. But yeah, this little guy is, first off, it's little. It only has 8 fader banks across the front of it, so you can see just from a size perspective, it has a nice small footprint. And what it does out of the box is pretty awesome. It's priced similar to the QL. It's also priced similar to like the Behringer. What are those things called? The Behringer that like everybody has, that I'm forgetting what it's called. Anyway,
The Flow 8? Is that what you mean?
No, the
X32.
Yeah, that's it. Like the X32, the smaller X32. Like I see those all over the place, and for some reason, me and the Behringer devices, I just don't get along with them. But the footprint of this is really, really nice. And for what it has built into it, it's pretty spectacular. But not available yet. They shipped a few of them in May, basically. And I'm waiting for pre-orders to start for the DM3D. That's my current wish list item. Yes, Amy, a birthday wish for sure. It's my own birthday present to me.
That looks awesome.
Yep. Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, guys. Well, listen, as always, you guys all know where to find us in the app where Muddy and I were just playing around with the live chat. You can reach us there from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, and then also through help@obv.io. And then you can, of course, also reach not only us, but the community inside of the Facebook group. So make sure you keep in touch if you have any questions. You don't have to wait until next week's call. If you do have questions, you can get those questions answered in advance of that. And we'll see you next week. Next week will be an afternoon call because this week was morning. And it'll take place at 5 p.m. Eastern time next Wednesday. Hope you guys have an amazing week. Keep using Obvio, keep having fun with it. Keep telling us how you would like to have it improved. A lot of the features that have come forward in the last year have come from user suggestions. It's not just myself, it's not just Grant making these decisions or coming up with these ideas. We oftentimes will integrate ideas that come up on these calls, but also that users email in looking for little usability enhancements. So that's what we're here for. And have a great week. We'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.